The night had settled over Constantinople like a shroud, thick and suffocating, broken only by the distant glow of fires that licked the horizon. Inside the cramped chamber beneath the battered walls of a forgotten monastery, the flickering flames of a single oil lamp cast long, jittering shadows against the rough stone. Elias sat hunched over the worn parchment of the secret map, his fingers trembling as they traced the faint lines his father had drawn years before. Beside him, Sophia leaned in, her sharp eyes scanning the intricate details with a practiced gaze honed by years navigating the city's hidden underworld. "Look here," Elias whispered, pointing to a barely perceptible marking etched in faded ink, almost lost among the maze of streets and canals. "This symbol, it's a passage, a corridor beneath the city." Sophia's lips parted in a mixture of surprise and hope, the tension in her posture momentarily easing. "You mean a way out, a route the Ottomans don't know?" He nodded slowly, the weight of the knowledge settling heavily on his shoulders. "Yes. My father found it, and he hid it here. It could be our salvation, but if it falls into the wrong hands..." Her gaze hardened. "Then we must be careful. The city is crawling with spies and traitors." The room seemed to close in on them as they bent closer, whispering plans and possibilities. Outside, the muffled sounds of distant cannon fire punctuated the night, a grim reminder of the ever-tightening noose around the city's ancient heart. Elias could feel the fire's heat, even here underground, a consuming force that threatened to swallow everything he had ever known. Yet within the map's delicate folds, beneath layers of ink and time, there shimmered a fragile thread of hope. "We need to verify the passage," Elias said, determination sharpening his voice. "If it truly exists, we must find it before the city falls completely." Sophia nodded, already reaching for her cloak. "Then we move at first light. The less time we waste, the better." The hours before dawn passed in restless anticipation. Elias's mind raced with memories of his father's teachings, the careful instructions passed down like a fragile heirloom. The map was more than lines and symbols. It was a legacy, a promise that Constantinople's story might not end in flames and ruin. As the first pale fingers of light seeped through the cracks in the monastery's walls, Elias and Sophia slipped into the waking city. The streets were eerily quiet, save for the distant clang of armor and shouted orders from Ottoman patrols. Every shadow seemed to harbor danger, every corner a potential betrayal. Guided by the map's secret markings, they wound their way through narrow alleys and forgotten courtyards, feet splashing softly through puddles left by recent rains. The air was thick with the smell of smoke and charred wood, a constant reminder of the destruction that crept ever closer. At last, they reached an ancient chapel, its once grand facade now marred by cracks and soot. Behind a crumbling altar, Elias found the faded inscription he had seen on the map, a series of symbols carved deep into the stone. With a careful touch, he pressed a hidden latch, and a section of the wall groaned open, revealing a dark passage descending into the earth. A rush of cold air spilled forth, carrying the scent of damp stone and forgotten history. Sophia glanced at Elias, her eyes wide but resolute. "This is it," he whispered. The secret passage. They stepped inside, the darkness swallowing them as the walls closed behind. The passage was narrow and uneven, the floor slick with moisture. Every step echoed softly, a ghostly rhythm beneath the city's dying heartbeat. But the promise of escape was tempered by the stark reality of their peril. The secret was no longer theirs alone. Rumors had begun to stir, and the threat of betrayal lurked closer than ever. A sudden sound shattered the silence, a hurried footstep behind them. They froze, breath caught in their throats. Elias's heart pounded as shadows shifted in the gloom. "Who's there?" he called softly, hand reaching for the dagger concealed beneath his cloak. A figure emerged, a young boy, eyes wide with fear and urgency.
"You must hurry!"
They know about the passage. "The enemy is close." Sophia's grip tightened on Elias's arm. "We have no time to waste." Together they pressed onward, the secret of the map now a beacon of hope and a target of deadly consequence. Beneath the burning city, amid smoke and ash, Elias felt the fragile thread of destiny taut against the weight of history. Could the passage save them all? Or would the fire consume their last chance, reducing hope to ash? The answer lay hidden in the darkness ahead, as the city's fate hung in the balance. The cellar was cold and damp, the air thick with the scent of mold and smoke, a faint hint of burning wood from the fires that ravaged the city above. Elias' hands trembled slightly as he held the rolled map close to his chest, its fragile parchment seeming to weigh more with each passing moment. The flicker of a single torch cast long, dancing shadows on the cracked stone walls, mirroring the turmoil that roiled within him. He had been betrayed. The news had come like a sudden, violent gust of wind, threatening to snuff out the fragile flame of hope that the secret map represented. A trusted ally, someone he had shared whispered confidences within the dark corners of the city, had sought to sell the map to General Murad's forces. The very thought burned like acid in Elias's stomach, the betrayal cutting deeper than any sword. Sofia had been the first to deliver the warning. She arrived breathless, her dark hair damp with sweat, eyes sharp and wide with urgency. "Elias," she whispered fiercely. "I overheard them." Thomas spoke with a man in the market. "The map is no longer safe. Someone close to you plans to trade it for gold and favor with the Ottomans." Elias's heart pounded fiercely. Thomas, the informant linked to Sofia, had always been a wild card, but to think that someone within their circle could betray them was unthinkable. Yet the evidence was undeniable. "We must act quickly," Sofia urged, her voice low but resolute. "If Murad gains the map, the city's fate is sealed." Marcus stood guard outside Elias's chamber, his silhouette stark against the flickering glow of distant fires. His loyalty was unquestioned, yet Elias sensed the strain beneath his stoic demeanor. The siege had worn down even the strongest, and the weight of survival pressed heavily upon them all. Inside the cramped cellar, Elias confronted the suspected traitor, a man whose face had once been familiar and trusted. The confrontation was tense, a battle of whispered accusations and desperate denials. The torchlight flickered, casting fleeting glimpses of guilt and fear on the man's face. "Why would you do this?" Elias's voice was barely more than a hiss, but it carried the weight of a city's dying hope. "I do what I must to live," the man replied, eyes darting nervously. "The empire is lost. Better to save oneself than perish with it." The words stung, but Elias knew the truth in them. Yet, surrender was not an option. With swift resolve, Elias and Sofia secured the map, hiding it where none but they could find it. They could no longer afford trust. Suspicion had become their shadow, stalking every corner. Outside, the city groaned beneath the relentless siege. Flames licked the horizon, smoke rising like a dark banner against the night sky. General Murad watched from his vantage point, his cold gaze taking in the destruction with grim satisfaction. To him, the betrayal was but one more step toward victory, a necessary sacrifice in the march of history. As Elias closed the cellar door behind him, the weight of the secret pressed heavier than ever. The fire outside was not merely consuming the city's stones and timber. It was devouring trust, hope, and the fragile bonds that held the defenders together. Yet amidst the shadows of betrayal, Elias felt a flicker of determination. The map's secret passage was still theirs to protect, still a beacon in the encroaching darkness. But time was running out, and the enemy's shadow grew longer with each passing hour. He looked towards Sofia, whose eyes met his with unwavering resolve. "We fight for the city," she said softly, "even if it means facing the fire alone." Elias nodded, steeling himself against the despair that threatened to consume him. The battle was far from over, and the cost of betrayal had only sharpened the stakes. The night deepened, and with it, the city's fate hung by a thread, fragile, flickering, but not yet extinguished. The morning dawned heavy with smoke, the sky a bruised canvas streaked with ash and the faint, flickering glow of distant fires. Constantinople, once a proud jewel of the empire, now groaned under the relentless hammering of Ottoman artillery. The ancient walls, symbols of centuries of strength and resilience, shook with each thunderous impact. Elias pressed his forehead against the cold stone parapet, his breath shallow, heart pounding in his chest. The rhythmic roar of cannonade was relentless, each blast sending a cascade of stone and dust tumbling down into the narrow streets below. The city's defenders scrambled amidst the debris, their faces etched with exhaustion and dread. Sophia appeared suddenly at Elias's side, her dark eyes sharp and alert. "The southern gate won't hold much longer," she whispered urgently. "We must move before it collapses entirely." He nodded, the weight of his secret heavier than ever. The secret map he guarded promised a hidden passage beneath the city walls, a route that could mean salvation or ruin. Yet revealing it now felt like opening a door to unknown dangers. The fires that licked at the city's edges were no longer distant threats. They crept closer, devouring homes, shrines, and memories. "Marcus is holding the eastern battlements," Sophia continued, pulling Elias away from the parapet. "We can't afford to lose him, nor the morale of the defenders." As they darted through twisting alleys shrouded in smoke, the acrid scent of burning timber and melting wax filled the air. The sounds of battle echoed clashing steel, shouted orders, and the anguished cries of the wounded. Elias's fingers tightened around the rolled scroll hidden beneath his cloak. His mind raced, torn between fear and resolve. Ahead, a section of the wall shuddered and then gave way with a thunderous crash. Dust and debris billowed skyward as Ottoman soldiers surged through the breach. Marcus's voice rang out, rallying his comrades. "Hold fast. For the city, for our homes." Elias caught sight of Marcus, his childhood friend, standing firm amid the chaos, his armor battered but his spirit unyielding. The sight stirred in Elias a fierce determination that the city's fate need not be sealed in despair. But the enemy was merciless and methodical. From a vantage point beyond the walls, General Murad observed the scene with cold calculation. His dark armor gleamed beneath the rising sun, his expression unreadable as flames flickered in the distance. To him the city was a prize long sought, a crown to cement his legacy. Yet beneath his steely exterior lay a grudging respect for the defender's valor, a silent acknowledgement of the empire's twilight splendor. Back within the city, Elias and Sophia navigated the labyrinthine streets, weaving through crowds of desperate citizens seeking refuge or escape. The fires spread, casting an eerie orange glow that danced on the walls and illuminated faces marked by fear and determination. The map's secret passage beckoned a slender hope amidst the encroaching darkness. As the day wore on, the siege's grip tightened inexorably. The outer defenses, once thought impenetrable, were now fragments of rubble and fallen stones. The defenders' numbers thinned, their spirits tested by loss and the relentless advance of the enemy. In a quiet moment, Elias paused in a ruined chapel, the faint scent of incense mingling with smoke. He traced the ancient lines of the map with trembling fingers, feeling the weight of history and responsibility. The fires outside were no longer just destroyers. They were witnesses to the city's final stand, illuminating the fragile pulse of an empire gasping its last breath. "We cannot wait much longer," Sophia said softly, her voice steady despite the chaos. "The secret must be used, or all will be lost." Elias met her gaze, the conflict within him mirrored in the flickering shadows. To reveal the map's secret was to risk betrayal, to expose the city's vulnerabilities. Yet to withhold it was to condemn many to death. The city's fate balanced precariously on the edge of a knife. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over shattered streets, Elias knew that the coming hours would demand choices that would echo through history. The siege had tightened its noose, and the map's secret passage was the slender thread that might yet pull them from the flames. But would it be enough? The fire crackled beyond the walls, a relentless reminder that the Empire's twilight was near and that Elias's burden was heavier than ever. The city's heart still beat, faint but defiant, beneath the ash and rubble. And Elias, the cartographer, stood at the crossroads of destruction and hope, ready to chart a course through the encroaching darkness. With a final glance at the city he loved, Elias stepped forward, the scroll clutched tight, the fires of history burning behind him, lighting the path into the unknown. The evening air hung heavy with smoke and despair as I sat alone, the weight of the secret map pressing down like the ash-laden sky above Constantinople. Candlelight flickered unevenly across the worn parchment, spread before me delicate lines etched long ago by my father, now a legacy I bore with trembling hands. Beyond my chamber walls, the city groaned beneath the relentless Ottoman siege. The distant thunder of cannon fire rolled through the streets, mingling with the crackling of fires that devoured homes and hopes alike. I traced the path of the hidden passage once more, each curve and contour a silent promise and a cruel torment. It was a route unseen by invaders and defenders alike, a secret carved in shadow beneath the city's heart, a slender thread of salvation woven through stone and darkness. Yet the question that gnawed at me was as fierce as the flames outside. Should I reveal it? To whom? Could I bear the cost of such a choice? Sophia arrived shortly before dusk, her dark eyes sharp and steady as ever despite the chaos that clawed at our city. She moved with a cautious grace that had become a necessity for survival, her practical garb blending into the crumbling streets like a wraith. We slipped through the narrow alleys, the acrid smoke stinging our eyes and filling our lungs with every breath. Around us, the city was a symphony of despair, distant cries, the clash of steel, and the ever-present roar of fire. We paused beneath a shattered archway, the dying light casting long shadows over her face. "Elias," she whispered, "the passage could save us. Not just you and me, but others. But the risk. If the Ottomans discover it, they'll use it to crush what remains of our people." Her words echoed my own torment. To hold the secret was to protect the city's future, yet to keep it hidden was to consign many to death. The fire burning around us was both destroyer and witness to the impossible choice before me. That evening, Marcus came to me with the weight of a soldier's grim resolve etched deeply on his face. His armor bore the scars of battle, and his gaze was steady despite the fatigue that shadowed his features. "Elias," he said quietly, "we can't fight the tide forever. If this passage offers even a sliver of hope, we must take it. But you must know, once the secret is out, there's no turning back. Betrayal lurks everywhere." His warning was a heavy stone in my chest. Marcus's loyalty was a balm, yet the burden of trust grew heavier with every passing moment. I saw in him the conflict tearing at us all, the clash between duty to the city and the instinct to survive. In the quiet sanctuary of the cathedral, I sought Father Gregorius's counsel. The flickering candles cast a soft glow on his sorrowful eyes, the scent of incense mingling with smoke from the burning city beyond the vaulted arches. His voice was calm, a steady river in the storm of my thoughts. "Elias," he said gently, "fire is both destroyer and purifier. What is lost in flame may give way to renewal. Your choice, like the fire, will burn away some and kindle hope for others. Trust in that which endures beyond the ashes." His words resonated deep within me. The city, our history, our very souls were ablaze, but perhaps from that devastation could arise a fragile future. Yet the path was perilous, the stakes impossibly high. Night deepened as I returned to my chamber, the map still spread before me like a silent oracle. The fire outside cast a restless glow through cracked windows, shadows flickering like ghosts of the past and future intertwined. My fingers trembled as I reached for the scroll, the finality of my decision settling like cold ash. To reveal the passage was to gamble everything, the survival of the few against the hope for many. But indecision was no longer a refuge. The city's fate was a crucible, and I must step into the flame. As dawn approached, the first embers of resolve kindled within me. I would share the secret. Not recklessly, but with those I trusted most. The map's hidden passage would become our beacon through the darkness, a slender thread leading away from the consuming fire. The city might fall, but through this choice, perhaps a seed of its spirit would survive. The crossroads of fate loomed before me, a choice etched in ash, burning with the unbearable light of hope and loss. And so, with a heart heavy yet resolute, I prepared to face the consequences of the path I had chosen. The fire outside was no longer just destruction. It was a challenge to endure, a call to rise beyond the ruins. The story of Constantinople was far from over, and I, Elias, its reluctant cartographer, would chart a course through the flames. But as the city slept uneasily beneath the gathering storm, I could not know what betrayals and sacrifices awaited us on the road ahead. The secret passage was a promise, yes, but also a summons to courage and to peril. And in that fragile moment, with the weight of history pressing down, I understood that every step forward would be a test, every breath a victory against the encroaching dark. The fire burned on, relentless and eternal, and so must we. The suffocating heat had long ceased to be a distant threat. It was now an oppressive presence, pressing down from the burning city above, as if the very air sought to choke us into submission. I tightened my grip on the worn leather scroll case strapped to my side. Its weight both a burden, and a beacon inside it lay the secret that might save us all, or at least those who survived this hell. Sophia moved ahead with practiced stealth, her footsteps whispering against the ancient stone. Behind her, Marcus's steady gaze flicked between the shadows and our small group, every muscle taut with vigilance. Isabella, her usually calm composure fractured by the chaos, clutched her cloak tightly, eyes darting nervously. The entrance to the passage was hidden beneath the rubble of a collapsed alleyway, a narrow crevice just wide enough for a man to squeeze through. I paused a moment, inhaling the damp, earthy scent of the underground, mingled with the acrid tang of smoke seeping from above. "This way," Sophia whispered, her voice low but resolute. One by one, we slipped into the darkness, the light of the city's fires fading behind us but replaced by the eerie glow of our torches flickering against the tunnel walls. The passage was a labyrinthine artery beneath Constantinople, worn smooth by centuries yet twisted with sudden turns and narrow chambers. My fingers brushed the cold stone, tracing the lines on my map in my mind as we moved deeper. Here, the city's pulse was different, a silent heartbeat beneath the roaring inferno above. The distant crackle of flames and the faint cries from above served as grim reminders of what awaited beyond these walls. A sudden obstruction brought us to a halt. Sophia's face hardened as she gestured to a collapsed section ahead. "We must find another way," she said, voice taut with urgency. The air grew thicker, hotter smoke curling in through unseen fissures. We detoured through a smaller, less stable tunnel, the floor littered with loose stones and debris. The risk was palpable. A single misstep could mean disaster. Tensions simmered beneath our forced silence. Marcus's brow furrowed as he caught Isabella hesitating at a fork in the path. The noblewoman's eyes flicked away, a shadow crossing her face. Later, in a cramped chamber dimly lit by our torches, Marcus confronted her in a whisper sharp enough to cut through the stale air. "Your hesitation costs us all," he accused. "What are you hiding?" Isabella's voice was brittle, laden with fear and regret. "I do what I must to survive," she replied. The confrontation was a fracture in our fragile unity, a painful reminder that trust was a scarce commodity in these desperate times. We pressed on, each step heavier than the last as the tunnel seemed to close in around us. The oppressive heat and the ever-present threat of collapse tested our resolve. Yet, amid the darkness, a fragile hope endured, the hope that the secret my father had entrusted to me was not in vain. At last, the tunnel opened onto a slope leading upward. The cool night air greeted us like a benediction as we emerged beyond the crumbling city walls. The horizon was ablaze, Constantinople's silhouette etched against the inferno. I looked back, the flames reflecting in my eyes, mingling sorrow with a spark of survival. "We made it," Sophia breathed, though the weight of what we left behind pressed down on us all. I clutched the map case tighter, knowing this was but the beginning. The city might burn, But the story etched in ash would live on, carried by those who dared to flee through fire and shadow. The night was far from over and the road ahead uncertain, but for now, we had escaped the flames. Yet the question lingered, heavy and relentless. What price would our survival demand next? Our flight through flames was both an end and a beginning, a passage marked by sacrifice, betrayal, and the fragile hope that even in ruin, something might endure. The night air was thick with smoke and the acrid scent of burning wood, a bitter reminder that Constantinople was slipping further into ruin. Marcus stood firm at the edge of the shattered gate, his broad shoulders squared against the relentless advance of Ottoman forces. The distant pounding of drums echoed like a funeral dirge, growing louder with each passing moment. His eyes, steady and unyielding, scanned the darkened streets, every muscle taut with resolve. He knew what was at stake, not just his life, but Elias's and the fragile hope the secret map represented. Behind him, the city groaned and cracked under the weight of siege. Fires licked at the edges of once proud buildings, their orange glow casting long, trembling shadows. Marcus's breath came in slow, measured bursts, his hands gripping the worn hilt of his sword. He had fought beside Elias since childhood, their bond forged in the innocence of youth, and tempered now by the crucible of war. Farther within the city's labyrinthine heart, Elias and Sophia huddled in a narrow alley, their whispered conversation urgent and low. The cold bit into their skin, and their breaths hung in the air like fragile ghosts. Maps and scrolls were spread out before them, illuminated by the flickering light of a small lantern. Sophia's sharp eyes traced the secret passage carefully, her voice barely audible as she outlined the perilous route. "We must move quickly," she urged, glancing nervously toward the distant sounds of battle. "Marcus is holding the line, but he won't last long." Elias nodded, his pale face etched with worry. The weight of his responsibility pressed heavily upon him. This secret map, inherited from his father, was more than a guide, it was their only hope to escape the city's inevitable fall. As they prepared to move, the cacophony of clashing steel and shouted orders grew nearer. Marcus had engaged a squadron of Ottoman soldiers who had breached the outer defenses. His figure was a stark silhouette against the fiery skyline, sword flashing with grim determination. Each strike he made was a defiant stand against the overwhelming tide, a desperate attempt to buy his friends precious moments. The narrow streets echoed with the harsh sounds of combat, metal striking metal, the cries of the wounded, and the relentless roar of the enemy. Marcus fought not just for survival, but for the future of an empire crumbling beneath him. His sacrifice was a testament to the profound loyalty that bound him to Elias and the city they loved. From their hidden vantage point, Elias's heart clenched as he watched Marcus fall, a single sword thrust ending the soldier's valiant stand. The loss was a sharp, searing pain, a reminder of the brutal cost of war. Yet amidst the grief, a fierce resolve ignited within Elias. Marcus's sacrifice would not be in vain. He turned to Sophia, voice steady despite the tears threatening to spill. "We must move now," Elias said. "For Marcus, for the city, for all that remains." Together, they slipped into the shadows, following the secret passage that promised salvation or death. The flames behind them consumed everything familiar, but ahead lay the uncertain path of survival. The city's fall was imminent, but the spirit of those who loved it endured, carried forward by the courage and sacrifice of its defenders. As they disappeared into the dark labyrinth beneath Constantinople, the echoes of battle faded into a haunting silence. Elias's mind was heavy with loss, but his heart beat with the stubborn flame of hope. The price of loyalty had been paid in full, and now it was his turn to bear the legacy. The city might burn, but its memory would live on, etched forever in the ashes and the hearts of those who escaped. And Elias, once a cautious scholar, was now a man transformed, ready to face whatever fate awaited beyond the ruins. But even as the first steps into darkness were taken, a question lingered in Elias's mind, sharp and unyielding. Could he truly carry this burden alone? Or would the weight of loss consume him before the journey's end? The night deepened, the flames behind them crackling like ancient whispers. The map was their guide, the fire both destroyer and witness.